quadratic functions. Here we go. So if you're given a vertex of a quadratic function, 2, 1, and you're told that y-intercept is -3, you're asked to find the function. Now, this kind of problem, let me just take a moment, kind of slow down a little bit and kind of talk about the big idea, right? When you're given a description of function, you really had to be able to visualize this, right? This is really looking at a graph. You had to be able to sketch it out the graph to kind of help you think about the strategy. And then you want to find the function. So one way to start is to sketch out the graph. Let me just sketch out the graph right here. It doesn't have to be super precise or super accurate, but you want to be able to be precise enough for you to not make too many mistakes. So in this case, at least I will draw out the unit. I want to start with the vertex. Vertex is 2, 1, so 1, 2, 1 here. So there's a point right here. This is the highest point, right? So it's 2, 1. I will even label the coordinate. Now y-intercept is equal to -3. So what that means is that this is also a coordinate. So I'm going to go ahead and identify the coordinate. So this must be 0, -3, right? So that's where I will put. I will come over here and sketch it out. 0, -3, -1, -2, -3. So here's 0, -3. So the graph will look like this. This is a vertex, so it will swing over on this side. Now, this information, this graph will immediately help you understand that. Well, if I know this point right here, we must know the corresponding point on the other side of the parabola. And this parabola, right, if this point is 2 units away from the vertex in terms of the x-axis horizontally, this must be 2 more units over here. So this must be 4 for the x value. And then the y value is the equivalent of the intercept. So it's 4, -3. So here, I take advantage of the fact that I have 3 points. I can go ahead and sketch it out, x and y, right? Or f of x. In a sense, we got 2 and 1, 0 and -3, 4 and -3. We have 3 points. Now, why is this important? Because if I want to find a quadratic function is in the form of f of x is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. Now, what I really need to do is to figure out what a, b, and c's are, right? And there's 3 unknowns, so that means I need to have these 3 coordinates to come up with the 3 separate equations for a, b, and c to find a, b, and c. Once I can figure out the values of a, b, and c, then I will have, I will be able to find the actual function. So let's take a look at this. So start out with 2, 1. Okay, this first point. X is equal to y is equal to 1. What that gives you is, right, f of x is equal to 1. 1 is equal to a times 2 squared, right? Square, because x is 2, so 2 squared, plus b times 2 plus c. So this becomes 1 is equal to 4a plus 2b plus c. Okay, so at least that's what I come up with for now. Then I will use the next one, 0 and -3. That's the next coordinate. I will end up with -3 is equal to a times 0 squared plus b times 0 plus c. So that means -3 is equal to c. Oh, so I have this value. Perfect. Now, I can immediately put it back into here to give me a secondary a revised equation. So I end up with 1 is equal to 4a plus 2b minus c. Well, actually minus 3 actually, not c. I'm sorry, negative 3. So plus 3 on both sides, I end up with 4 is equal to 4a plus 2b. But since they're all factors of 2, I can divide every single term by 2. I end up with 2 is equal to a plus b. Now, this is a helpful equation with a and b, so I call this equation 1. Okay, so I have exhausted all the information up to this point, but I want to continue with 4 and negative 3, right? 4 and negative 3. That's my third point. The third point, continue, I end up with negative 3 is equal to a times 4 squared plus b times 4 and plus c, and we know c is negative 3, so minus 3. So add 3 on both sides, we end up with 0 is equal to 16a plus 4b. If that's the case, I can divide every single term by 4. I end up with 0 is equal to 4a plus b. Let's call that equation number 2. Now, so if you have equation number 1 is equal to 2 plus 2a plus b, and second equation 0 is equal to 4a plus b, then I can bring the second equation down, or first equation down. We end up with, let me just make sure you can see on the camera. We end up with 2 is equal to 2a plus b. This is the first equation. Now what do? We learned that in Algebra 1, we can subtract these two things. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. 4a minus 2a is 2a. b minus b equals 0, so negative 2 equal to 2a. So what does that mean? That means a is equal to negative 1. A is equal to negative 1. That's the second one, right? Right. So now, you see, I know c is equal to 3. I know a is equal to negative 1. Well, let's put it back into the first equation. So let's see what happened. 2 is equal to 2 times negative 1 plus b. So 2 equal to negative 2 plus b. So b must be 4. So now I have a, which is negative 1, b is 4, c is negative 3. Then I can come over here and I say my f of x is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. I just found them. Let me write it out again just so that no mistake about it and you can follow along. A is equal to negative 1, b is 4, c is negative 3. So my final answer, f of x, is equal to negative x squared plus 4x minus 3. There you go. That's my function right there. Okay? Now, if I take this same function, let me just keep it right here, right? I keep it right here and I'll rewrite this again. What if I start out with a problem, instead of the graph or the coordinate or the information about the graph, but rather the equation first. I got f of x equal to negative x squared plus 4x minus 3. And instead, the question says, graph this. If I need to graph this, then very simple, right? The information you need into the graph is you need to find a vertex and you need to find a y-intercept. That's very simple. Those two pieces of information will allow you to figure that out. Now, vertex. So first of all, finding vertex. Vertex has a coordinate, we call it, use general term h and k. But what it does is that we know that h is equal to negative b over 2a. Oh, if that's the case, we know in this case, right, in this case, if you identify this, a is equal to negative 1, b is equal to 4, c is equal to negative 3, then we say, h is negative b, so negative 4 over 2 times negative 1. We got negative 4 over negative 2. H is 2. But what's k? Well, k, you need to find k. K is f of 2, right? Because h is the x coordinates. So put 2, and h is 2, so put 2 into x, and to figure out the y value. So we get negative 2 squared plus 4 times 2 minus 3, right? We get negative 4 plus 8 minus 3, we get 1. 2 and 1. So finally, we conclude vertex h and k is 2, 1. Now, y-intercept. Now, y-intercept is very simple. Y-intercept, in a sense, is when x equal to 0, right? What is y value when x is equal to 0? So, you put f of 0 in there. You end up with negative 0 squared plus 4 times 0 minus 3. You end up with negative 3. So that means y-intercept is 0, negative 3. So here we are. We can graph it out. Once again, we have a vertex at 2 and 1. So 1, 2, and 1. So 2, 1. Y-intercept is 0 and negative 3. 1, 2, 3. 0, negative 3. So you can but you remember vertex serves as a sort of a center of the graph. So on the other side, you will have a mirror image point. So in this case, this is 4 and negative 3. When you have these 3 points, you can draw a parabola. And that's how you come up with the graph. Finally, related to what we just went over, say if you have a problem says solve negative x squared plus 4x minus 3 is equal to negative 1. Say you have that. This is how you think about it, right? Obviously, if you have this equation, you can turn this equation equal to 0 and then use quadratic formula. But what I want to do right now is eventually we'll get to use the quadratic equation, but I want to show you how to interpret this problem in the context of what we just went over. So the way you think about it is this. You can think of this portion as f of x and think of this portion as g of x, right? So basically you have two different functions. And we're really talking about the meaning of this equation, the meaning of this equation. And so visually, graphically, what does that mean, right? You can think of it as this, as earlier when we have this equation. This is literally just taking the same problem that we have, right? This is a function, f of x, equal to negative x squared plus 4x minus 3, right? This is what we just went over. But then g of x, we'll have a g of x equal to negative 1. What that means is that negative 1 is right here. So you have this equation, this function right here, we're calling this one, right? This black line right here, g of x equal to -1. Right, -1's right here. And where they intersect at these 2 points, these 2 points are basically the solutions. Right? So when we say, when the problem says solve -x squared plus 4x minus 3 equal to -1, what they're saying is to say, what are these 2 points in which these 2 functions will meet, will become equal? This is where they become equal, these 2 points. Okay, so that's the meaning. So solving, right? So in terms of solving, we're solving it algebraically, so we can use quadratic formula. So let's just do that real quick, and we'll finish this in no time, right? X is equal to -b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Remember, you got to memorize this. Now, this is in a context where you have ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. So on the right side of the equation, you have to set it equal to 0. So if we start out with -x squared plus 4x minus 3 is equal to -1, you have to make it into -x squared plus 4x minus 2 equal to 0. You have to transform that into this. This is basically what you want to work with. So you say a is equal to -1, b is equal to 4, c is equal to -2. Okay, that's the case. Then your answer, x is equal to, right, -b, right, following the quadratic formula, -b, -4, plus minus square root of b squared, 4 squared, minus 4a, which is -1, c is -2, over 2a, 2 times -1. So x is equal to -4 plus minus square root of 16, right? So you got -4 times -1, which is +4, +4 times -1, which is -a, so minus a, over -2. Okay? And then you got x is equal to -4 plus minus square root of 8 over -2. X is equal to, right, in this case, you got -4 plus minus 2 square root of 2 over -2. And finally, x is equal to -2 plus minus square root of 2, right? Because you can go 1, 1, and 2 like this. Then you end up with -2 plus minus square root of 2. So what's x? X is equal to -2 plus square root of 2, and x is equal to -2 minus square root of 2. You got 2 answers. But what are these 2 answers? Well, this points back to this point, and this one points back to that point. Do you see? That's how the solution is related. Are related back. The solutions are related back to the function. That's how you put everything together. So let me recap, right? I start out with this problem, where you are given the description of the graph, and you have to come up with a function. And then I simply just flip the problem back from function, and then you had to graph it. But then I take the same function, right? And then I set it equal to -1, and I ask you to solve the quadratic equation. The interpretation is also a graphical interpretation, but then we can utilize the techniques that we learn, whether it is completing squares or using the quadratic formula. Eventually, it leads to some sort of solutions, which can be reinterpreted back into what is shown on the graph. So, during the assessment, which in the next episode I will give you further on the assessment on this in this particular chapter, in this particular unit on quadratic functions. Problems that you will be given are typically a sort of multiple part problems where you have something like a description of the graph. You have to come up with the equation, and then I'll ask you furthermore on how do you work with the equation, the intercept, of the two different functions, and in which you have to solve, which you have to utilize the quadratic equation concept, utilizing quadratic formula to find solutions, etc., etc. So here ends we finally come to the end of this topic on quadratic function, and if you have any questions, look back to the previous videos. Hopefully you can find some answers. See you next time.